Hi, everyone. Welcome to, well, this turns out to be the 62nd episode. You may have wondered where last week's episode, 2 weeks ago's episode went. We had so much technical issues that there was no way it's going to happen. Hopefully, I can get Sophia, because we have another Sophia with us today on the show another day. But it was just technical issues made it totally complete impossible to even broadcast. But I had 45 minutes of picture with no sound. But I'm glad we're back, and I'm in Texas. This lady is sitting in Arizona. Hi, Sophia.
Hi, lots of
Well,
Sophias here.
yes, I was like, well, we had a Sophia. Well, that didn't happen. So now we have another Sophia, and you're sitting in Arizona. Where in Arizona are you?
Yeah, so I'm in Chandler, Arizona.
So you're not in Chandler, Texas. That's like 45 minutes south of me, apparently.
No, I
So
think I don't know. Is there a Chandler in every state? Is it the Springfield of?
I
of
have no
states?
clue. I was just laughing at it because one of the posts that we have is in Chandler, Texas. So I'm quite often in Chandler, Texas. I though have been in Chandler, Arizona once on my pass by there. So it's a
Oh,
beautiful, yes, it's a beautiful town.
it
So
is. It is.
so
It's very family friendly.
yes, I they gave me a tour of one of their fire stations actually.
Oh,
So now you know. Now you know. They have very nice firefighters there. They're very friendly to people from Texas like me who barks in their doors like, "Hi." So yeah, that was fun. That was fun. So who is Sofia Sandner? That's
Sandner. Yeah,
Sandner.
Sandner. Good question. If you figure it out, can you let me know? But
Yeah, I ask myself that every morning, and after 42 years, I've never come up with an answer. I was like, "Who are you?" Oh, that's me again. Oh, that's
right.
sad. So, where in Sweden are you from?
So I guess I would say Eskilstuna.
Hmm.
Um, my parents, well, I guess they more or less they grew up in Norrköping. My father's actually from the very very north, uh, but when we lived in Sweden, we lived as a child rather. Uh, they lived in Eskilstuna.
They have a zoo there, don't they?
They do.
See what I remember. I've never been
Yeah,
there, but it just dawned on me when you said. I was like, they have a zoo there. That's what that
they
town is
do.
famous for, isn't it?
I yeah, and I remember they had like this massive sort of elephant cutout that you could climb up on. It's probably like one of my strongest memories from Sweden as a child is climbing up on that elephant.
Ah, that's sweet. And I understand you have lived. You called yourself. I was laughing at this when we talked a little bit first. A serial expat. That's the most funny thing
Yeah.
I've ever heard. So tell me, what makes you call yourself a serial expat? Thank God
Yeah,
for not being something else serial
I
next
know,
to
right?
me.
That would be a different interview.
Yes,
Um,
not suitable for Swix and podcast.
yeah, I'll try to keep it clean. Yeah, no, I was born an expat. I was born in Singapore. And we have hopscotched my entire life. So I think we went from Singapore to Malaysia. No, wait, Singapore to Belgium to Sweden, Belgium to Malaysia to Belgium to England and France, back to Belgium. We like Belgium.
Yeah.
Uh, and then in 2010, I moved to Arizona. My sister had met her husband in Belgium because, well, in Belgium, um, and he was from Arizona, and so they had moved over to Arizona, and they were starting their family. My parents had retired, and so they were spending 6 months in Arizona, 6 months in Europe, um, and I was at a sort of fork in my career and that had decided to go back to school. And I figured I could do that on a student visa. And so that's how I happened to move to Arizona. Um,
Mm.
yeah. And then after finishing my studies, I was staying here for an OPT, which is sort of the visa that you get after you complete your studies. You have a year to sort of work in that industry or area. And so that's what I was doing. And I was coming to the end of that when I met my now husband on a weekend away at Rocky Point or Puerto Peñasco.
Wow. Wow. Yeah. And marrying him makes you stay and get a marriage visa instead so you could stay.
Well, so he
wanted to move somewhere.
No, he wanted to propose and get married. And I said, no, let's this is really soon. Let's take some time and, get to know each other first. Like I didn't want to get married. I didn't want to get married for a visa. Like I wanted that to be like very clear. So I said, let's move to Sweden instead and have kids. And far less commitment, right?
Yeah, especially. Yeah, sure. Let's move across the world, have some kids, and then marry. Okay.
Yeah, and then we can talk about that party. Yeah, but so it wasn't the intent to actually move to Sweden and have kids. It was just to move to Sweden and view Europe on, weekend city getaways,
Yeah.
But life had different plans for us, and 2 kids later, we decided to move back to Arizona to be closer to family. My family actually lives all out here since my parents did end up retiring out here.
Gotcha.
His family obviously lives out here. He's local born and bred Arizonan. So so that's I guess that kind of brings us up to date.
Yeah, absolutely. So living in all these countries that you have, predominantly Belgium, apparently, which one is your favorite? I lived 6 months in Singapore. My heart is in Singapore. If anyone would say to me, can you move to Singapore? Would you like to move to Singapore? I'm like, here are my bags when we're leaving, as long as I can have my animals with me. But which one is your favorite?
I think that's a really tricky question, to be honest. And first off, I second your love for Southeast Asia. I love it. There's so much about it, like the food, the culture, like everything, the sights, the sounds, the smells. But I think ultimately the happiest a country's made me, I think honestly, was Sweden. And so Sweden, I lived there briefly when I was a very, very, very young child. And then again, as an adult, and it was definitely hard to sort of acclimate back to that because I'm not Swedish. Like I'm not your normal Swede. Like I'm an expat. Like it's a different, you don't fit in the same way. And
you're a little bit like the round ball bouncing in the box as I am.
Yeah. So exactly. So, but I think the connection to nature is something that is just so pervasive as a Swede and living in Sweden. So that made me really happy. But honestly, I don't think that there's any one particular one because there are so many great things about each of these countries that I guess my ideal one would be a piece of each one.
Where do you find that? Because that would be awesome.
I know. I'm gonna have to make my own little land.
Because the difference, if I say, from all of these countries you mentioned, and just Sweden to Arizona, if you talk about nature, that's like night and day. It's not even on the same spectrum.
Oh yeah, no, 100%. I mean, so after my second, I had a really intense postpartum depression, and obviously, I went to see the doctor and we spoke and therapist and we cried and all that stuff. But she said, the one thing that's going to help you is going for walks, look at trees. And she really said, go look at every single tree you see. Look at it.
Yeah. There'll be a couple of miles difference between them, but you can take the car as long as you look at them.
Yeah. So
take a cactus. Look at a cactus.
But it's true. And it wasn't until I started riding out here in Arizona that I started to really appreciate the nature and actually seeing like the sort of seasonal changes that do happen out here in the desert. Yeah, it's completely different to the forests that we are used to in Sweden, but it's there. You know, the flowers do bloom. Like the cacti are there. They go through their own sort of transformations like throughout the years. And so
But you
I
have to
think
look for it.
it's you have to look for it, but I think also it's you kind of have to let go of what you expect to be the norm because it's
Yeah.
not the norm.
Yeah.
That's just, you have to sort of see the beauty of where you are and appreciate your circumstances.
Sorry for my dog barking. I don't know why. He's probably finding something outside that's more interesting. I don't know what he's doing.
No worries. I have two yappy dogs as well. I have a Dalmatian and a Australian Shepherd, and they are
Twigs. Come here. Come here. Come here. Come here. Come here. Come here. Here, come.
You do.
I have one too.
Should I call in my trouble one?
Yes, we need to have a Dalmatian party.
Loki. Up. Up, up, up. Hey. Loki. No, I'm not calling you to get food scraps. Here. Up. Up. Duh.
Look here. Did you see that? Is he black or liver spotted?
Black.
He's black. Well, Twix is liver. Oh, now we have another party. You want to come here? Come here. You want to come and say hi? Yeah. Now this turning into. Here's my other one. My big boy. He's deaf. My Great Dane is deaf. So it doesn't matter if I bark at him and say stop barking because he can't hear anything about it. So. Yeah.
I saw a cute video about it was a French bulldog that was deaf, and he thought he was barking, but he doesn't make a sound. I was like, oh, I wish I had that for my Australian Shepherd, because I swear when she barks, like she has this play bark. Like her protective bark is fine, but her play bark makes your soul want to leave your body.
Yeah, no, Twix is not a good barker, but Bam Bam, my big one, he is. And it doesn't, I laugh at it because everybody's like, why don't you ask him to be quiet? I was like, because he's deaf, he can't hear shit. That's exactly why. It doesn't matter. It just makes my voice be tired. So yeah, right. That's fun. We both have a Dalmatian. So what was your dog's name?
Loki.
Loki. That's your friend? That's your friend now.
Yeah, so he's neither low key. He's very much the god of mischief.
I was just about to say, is there a Dalmatian, aka low key Dalmatian?
Well, no, and then we decided to make things worse by getting an Australian Shepherd as well. So she's about 8 months, and yesterday we went to this really cool tour. A colleague of mine, they've built a fully sustainable, like self-sustaining, off-grid home.
I saw that on your Instagram.
Yeah, it was super interesting. Like they collect their own rainwater, they filter it, and then they have like their own, they have their own power source from solar like panels on the roof. And they grow their own produce, and it's amazing. But in the meantime, the Australian Shepherd destroyed the carpet in the front room. So,
I'm sorry. That's all I can say.
So they have a fully self-sustaining house. We have a fully self-destructive one.
There you go. Maybe you can meet somewhere in the middle there,
Somewhere there's a happy medium.
Exactly. I'm going to post a link in the episode notes on our blog to your Instagram so people can go and look at that, because those pictures were really cool. I saw those this morning. I was like, I didn't know you could do that. It was interesting just to look, even though I didn't know much about it. But yeah. But go back here to animals, when you say, you also are an equestrian. You have a horse.
I am, yes.
What tell us about her? For me,
So
who's a horse
she,
lover.
yeah, no, so she's a Dutch warm blood. Her name is Destiny. I call her Stina. I don't know if you do the same, but I as a Swede, I always nickname my horses in with
Absolutely.
Swedish names. So I've had Moa, I've had Stina.
Yeah, I have Maya, and then
My,
always Dallas. She just turns to Dallas. That's
oh,
it. And then a Chris is Mini because he's so tiny.
he's a
So
teeny,
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
She's just like
He's almost a horse. He's Pinocchio.
yes. That she could be that because she had a broken jaw, but not a broken nose. But she doesn't look deformed. But yeah, so absolutely, you nickname your horses two Swedish names. Got to be. Mhm.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So she's a cool little horse. She's pretty peculiar. A lot of engine, not a lot of stop. Um,
And
a
you
lot
do
of power.
show jumping with her?
Yeah. Yeah. So she's actually bred for dressage and has incredible movements and but she also has a killer jump. So
There you go.
yeah, she's got scope for days.
I love it. I love it. It's fun. Horses, but how is it to ride in that climate as Arizona is?
You know, that's a really good question. I think, you know, I've ridden in a lot of different countries and climates. Um, I'd probably say the worst one was Malaysia because
Oh, humid.
well, it's humid. It's very, very humid, but also the culture is so different there. So
Yeah, yeah.
you don't actually get to tack up yourself. It's done for you and is a sign of respect. And then you can have a huge sort of disconnect where if you try to do it yourself, then that's perceived as negative for the groom because it means that he's not doing a good enough job or he's not trusting or
Oh,
that you're not trusting him. And so there's a huge sort of cultural clash there for writing, and then also it's just not to this high sort of the standards that I think we were used to in Europe. And I think similarly in the States, I also see a lot of culture clash, and not just in the climate, which is definitely hard. This year has been particularly hard. We're not used to having as much rain as we've had this year.
mm,
And because of the sort of the dry nature of Arizona, the, the sort of the ground that they use is dirt, really.
yeah.
Um, and so that turns very quickly into a mud mess if it rains. And so, you know, we've had several weeks where arenas have been unusable because of the
The
dirt
rain.
and the rains. And yeah. Um, and then there's just not that same mentality of turnout and balance that we would see in Europe. And I certainly see it as a problem when you're sort of conditioning horses to be these sort of top level athletes. Like
Yeah.
there's a lot that goes into that mix. Of course,
Mm.
your training program, your farrier, like all that stuff. But you have to condition them in a way that's mentally supportable for the horse. You can't just be in the arena all the time. You know, you have to be combining that with
Outdoor and
out,
relax.
yeah, exactly, being in turnout, you know,
Yeah.
having time off or conditioning by
Recovery
working
time.
right or you know being out in the forest. Like I don't think I didn't realize as a child how spoiled I was at the stable I was at because we had, you know, beautiful indoor outdoor arena. We had a forest right next to it. Like I could, you know, just we could relax and do the cool off in the forest. And that's
Yeah.
conditioning in and of itself. Like, because then you're climbing hills, you're going downhill. Like that's a
Uphill,
whole
down.
other, yeah, that's a whole other kind of training. And we had, you know, we had hacks everywhere. So like we would be able to go. We had a 1 hour hack. We had a 6 hour hack, you know, like
Yeah.
those are all things that play in. And of course, in Arizona, like you do have a lot of places do have access to like the desert and the washes and that sort of thing. So, but unfortunately, where I am located, I just don't. Not without trailering.
Yeah.
And I struggle with time as it is. So
Aren't we all? You know, there's never time enough for anything, it feels like. And if you have to, like, just taking a horse somewhere, that's a whole ordeal because it's time consuming, even though it's fun. I love it, but it's time consuming in that sense. Because you got to load up the horse, you got to move the horse, you got to untack and retack, and God knows what you got to do. And everything
right.
always take longer time than you expect it to.
Of
So
course, yeah.
yeah. So that's how it is. But how long time have you been doing horses?
I think I started when I was 5 or 6. And then I showed pretty intensely throughout my childhood. And I did, you know, I was showing for Sweden, so that was pretty cool.
Yeah.
This was in Belgium. And so you know, in the ponies, I did up to 1.20 meters, jumping, and then I took a break, you know, for college and life. And then it wasn't until I had moved to Arizona that I got back into it. So I got my off-track thoroughbred, and was working with her up until we moved to Sweden, and then I, you know, when we moved to Sweden, I sold her, and then I recently got Stina about a year and a half ago.
Gotcha. How often are you able to go back to Sweden and visit?
You know, it's been a while. Actually, it hasn't been since we moved from Sweden.
Well, you have your family there too, so it might not be the
right.
need.
Well, I think it's multifold, right? It's the pandemic was one.
Oh, what
That
was
was a
that you
curveball no
said?
one was expecting.
I haven't heard about that pandemic.
I know. What is this thing of which you speak?
Yeah.
No,
I've been locked in for some reason. I have no clue what you're talking about.
Yeah, no, I just choose to stay at home. So there's that one. And then also, when we moved back to Sweden, we had our 2 kids, but we weren't married yet. And that was strategic. Because when we had moved to Sweden, now here's a fun story for you. I didn't know that there's a heat embargo in Arizona. So and that means that from a specific date, and I think it's somewhere in April, like end of April, you are not allowed to fly out of Arizona or Phoenix with pets, because of the risk of them, you know, plane delays and them getting stuck in the tarmac, heat exhaustion, that whole thing. So we had to, within a week of our flight, change our flights completely so that we would fly out from LA instead. And that meant that I overstayed my ESTA by 1 day. And we didn't know that. We didn't realize it. So when we in 2015 or so, we wanted to fly back to Arizona, spend Christmas in Arizona, and tell everyone what we were expecting. I think I was like 5 months pregnant or something like that. Got detained at Chicago O'Hare Airport. Separated.
Oh my God!
They took my phone, they took my passport, they took the whole thing, because I had overstayed my ESTA. And so they put me in this room that has like windows all over the place, a toilet in the middle of the room. And that's where I stayed the night until they could put me on the first flight back to Stockholm. I had no idea where TJ was, my husband. And yeah, so that was a rude awakening.
Oh my goodness. And how did they let you back in? Because what I've heard is if you get caught, so to say, and you get detained and sent back, you may not be even allowed back in use whatsoever.
I wasn't. We tried to apply for special visas and everything, and I guess they thought that I would go back to, I would get into the country and then stay to have my babies there. And I don't know, but so what we ended up doing was applying for a K-1 visa, so a fiance visa.
Okay.
And we had 2 living proof of our relationship at that point.
Yeah.
And so that process actually finally came full term this December, where I was granted my citizenship.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
So watch your ESTA, people. Watch your ESTA.
Yeah.
Good Lord.
If you're flying out from Phoenix and you have pets, just plan accordingly, okay?
Jesus Christ. Yeah, that was a story. Well, I'm glad you got back in. So how long time did you have to stay in Sweden before you got back? Before you're back?
Well, so there wasn't really that. It was so we overstayed the ESTA, and then I got sent back, and I guess that must have been December 2015. And when we just made sure that we knew what was what, and we planned the fiance visa application. So and I guess I'm a little bit foggy on the details exactly in times. My son was born
back to Sweden.
Yes.
So how did you even make it back to Arizona again legally?
Well, because we spent 4 years in Sweden. So we were after that, like we stayed in Sweden.
Gotcha.
We worked and we did our thing there. And then we knew that we wanted to ultimately come back to the States so that I could get my citizenship. And that was really important to us because as a self-proclaimed serial expat, I just never know where we're gonna end up. Like I think the thought of staying in one place forever is really scary for me. It's very claustrophobic for me. And so I wanted to make sure that, since both my kids had dual citizenship, my husband had American citizenship, I wanted to have it too, just in case we are in a situation, whatever it may be, that we have the option to all be together at the same embassy.
Yeah.
If we need to. And so that was always the plan, sort of thing. So we applied for the K-1 visa. They had no grounds to deny it because our relationship is we have a history, right? Yeah, like we're not trying to fraud you on this one, like it's legit.
Exactly. Yeah.
And
what happened with the other things were just a plain accident that you didn't really intend for it to happen.
Right. And I think because, I think Chicago probably, they were a little too harsh. It's 1 day. It was 1 day, ESTA. We had no idea. Like, come on. It's not like I overstayed by 3 months or anything like that,
1 day is a little bit like, okay.
And so I think they went a little bit too extreme on that one. Luckily, the person who reviewed my K-1 visa application took that into account, and and then since then we followed all the steps dutifully as we were supposed to. So
that means that it's not going to be any problem with it. So if you have a dream of where in the world you would move next, like you can choose from ever, what would be your dream? I want to move to South Africa for some stupid reason. I don't even know why. I've never even been there.
I had that dream. I love South Africa. It's amazing.
I've never been there.
But oh really? Oh, it's amazing.
It's just an idea I have in my head.
Yeah. I don't know. I can give you several, but one would be a struggle.
Which ones would you try to, or would you dream about?
I would absolutely. I would want to move back to Sweden, at least for a period of time, so that my kids can get an experience of living there and the sort of culture, the traditions, language, that stuff.
How about Singapore?
So
you want to move
I
back
was going to say
Asia?
Southeast Asia, Southeast Asia, Japan. Like, yeah, those.
I've never been to
would
Japan
be...
though. I've been to China, Thailand. I've been to Singapore, but I've never been to Japan.
Ramen is probably one of my favorite things on the menu. So, yeah, I could see myself like disappearing in just like eating in different ramen shops for like a month or so.
So this is something that happened to me the other day at work. It was hilarious. And if you have lived in Asia, you know how to eat with chopsticks, right? You have that pretty much down at the point. And it doesn't matter if you haven't eaten with chopsticks for years, you get it in your hands, right?
Right.
So the other day I went over to Family Dollar, got me a frozen meal, and I put it in the microwave, and I realized there is no cutlery whatsoever in this show. There is none. Like, okay. But they had stirrers that you stir coffee with. So I took 2 of those and made those chopstick, and I ate my lunch, and everyone was looking and was like, it looks like you've been doing that before. I was like, yep, I have. And I had this flashback to Singapore when I lived there for a couple of months.
Oh, that's too funny.
Yeah, I was like, oh, I really want to go back just to visit and smells and everything. Yeah. Ooh,
did you when you were in Singapore, did you go to school there?
No, we were only there for 6 months, and we came there in May and left in the fall. So a lot of that time was anyway summer break. And it was before the internet was a thing, so I couldn't do any online. I just had to catch up about it when I came home. So I had a heck of a semester when I came home to catch up with everybody and see where we were. But thankfully it was in the summer, so it wasn't. I think I missed like 3 months, 2 months, so it wasn't too bad.
Yeah.
So most of it was during a summer break. So, but it was a lot of fun. They made it Christmas because since I then didn't go to school, I went with my mom, who worked for a shipping company, and she was there because they were building these big ships, and they were going to have naming ceremonies and stuff. But I had to go with her to work, which was awesome because me as a 12, 13-year-old girl got to know all about a corporate world, how to organize and all that kind of stuff. But you can imagine at the time I was blonde, Swedish blonde, and a little tot like this, super blonde with long hair down to my butt almost. That was, I had everybody.
So you had people coming over to touch your hair?
Yes. So it ended up with the company my mom was working for actually had a security guide just for me because they were afraid. I didn't even know it. To me, they presented, this is one of my mom's coworker. I later found out that was my security guard, so I didn't get kidnapped.
Oh, wow.
I wasn't even aware of it. He was just a cool guy.
Oh, that's too funny.
They were afraid that I was kidnapped. I was like, nah, nobody wants me except mom.
Oh, that's too funny. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And I was afraid of elevators. And Singapore has tall buildings. My mom's office was on the 143rd floor.
Oh my gosh.
And we had to change the elevator after the 80th floor every day for 6 months.
Oh my gosh. Wow. I mean, for me, I didn't have a fear of heights as a kid, but that's definitely something that's developed with the years.
It's not the height, it's the elevator. Because I got stuck in an elevator with my grandmother in Stockholm, and it wasn't that dramatic. If it wasn't that my grandmother panicked, and I was like 7, 8 years old, and my grandmother was an opera singer, so I could hear her scream bloody murder, and that's where I got my fear for elevators from. But I got treated during those 6 months.
Oh my god.
Yeah,
how are you with elevators now, though?
I have no problem going into them and going them unless they're very old. I I hesitate. If I can take the stairs, I will take the stairs, but I don't have that fear as I had to work on when I was in Singapore.
Yeah.
So yeah, I have no really big problems. I can manage them, but I don't like them. I don't like elevators. Mm-mm.
That's
Not
fair.
not my cup of tea at all. But yeah, don't don't start jumping. Like if somebody knows my fear and they start jumping, that's when I'm like, please
Oh
do
yeah, yeah.
not, just to like annoy me and scare me. That is no,
I
no,
mean,
no.
I just think that, funny or not, whatever your intent is, it's just not necessary. Like, why would you want to try? Like, on
Yeah.
the off chance, why?
No. Yes, no, no. I have so many imaginations of what can happen with an elevator, and I don't even want to go there. Yeah, no, I'll take I prefer the stairs, and I get the workout and exercise, and y'all can take your elevators. That's fine. That's
That's
why I
fair.
once walked up the Eiffel Tower instead of taking the elevator.
Uh, okay, yeah.
Yep. That
Been there,
that
done
I
that.
yep.
I immediately my legs are hurting.
Yep. I had pain in my legs for days after, but I refused because that fell into the category of an old elevator for me.
Hmm.
And a lot of people in the same elevator, that mathematics was not really adding up for me. So I'll take the stairs. And
Yeah,
I did. And everybody thought I was stupid. I did too the day after. Mhm. But it was an experience,
you
you
paid
know.
for it.
Yes, for absolutely, absolutely. So yeah, but I think I'm kind of used to elevators now. I know that unless they are very old, I can deal with it. So yeah, it's okay. It's okay. So what are you doing otherwise here in Arizona? Chandler, Arizona sounds like a
Chandler,
fun name.
Arizona. Yeah, no, I have a great job. I'm really really happy with what I'm doing. It's really exciting. I work in for a fintech or a digital banking service provider.
Cool. That's
Yeah, so
different.
yeah, it's funny because I remember I have this really really crystal clear memory of sitting in university, and um, we were in the sort of finance and accounting lecture. And I remember having this thought. I was like, I don't actually have to pay attention. I just need to pass this class. I don't need to pay attention to this. I don't need to remember this because I will never, ever work in banking or in finance. Well, famous words that I come to eat. Because here I am.
Working finance banking.
Working for
Oh, I
finance
love
and
it.
banking. But it is really cool. So it's a company that initially sort of set out to sort of close the barrier between the haves and have-nots. So, there's lots of banking services that most people use. You can send money, you can deposit your checks in your mobile app.
Yeah.
Well, a lot of people who don't have access or are not seen as being profitable enough for banks to serve, they don't. They have to depend on predatory money services like check
Mhm.
cashing and money sending and that sort of stuff. And they get really hit with insane
Same
fees.
fees. Yeah.
Insane. Um, and so what our mission was to sort of close that gap and to give them a safe, reliable banking service that they can use, with those same benefits, and at a lesser cost.
That's
Um,
cool.
yeah, it was really cool, and we built the app. It's called RightFi, and we realized in doing so, well, we're not going to change a whole lot of lives doing this. We could do it better. And so, having built the technology, we're now offering that to community banks, regional banks, even non banking institutions. So like I think you're like niche nonprofits.
Sweet.
Yeah. Sorry. And so we kind of pivoted to offer banking as a service, if you will. And so that's been really, really exciting. And I've been part of that since, we began in 2019. I think I'm one of four people from the very
From
beginning.
the beginning. That's so
Yeah,
cool.
I was the fourth person through the door, and then now we're like 60 people
Employ.
that have joined the company. Um, and it's wildly different from day to day. But it's really fun.
I bet.
Um,
I must ask you, how much of the Swedish traditions, do you have any Swedish traditions, or have you picked up, living in so many countries, have you picked up any of the traditions from any other country that we're not aware of that they have?
so my parents are sort of the older generation. So I mean, I grew up, even though we were everywhere else but Sweden growing up, we spoke Swedish at home, and we had very Swedish traditions. And so that's what I'm sort of trying to instill with my kids as well. My favorite is midsummer. We do the crayfish parties, we do, Easter, we do Lucia, we do Christmas. And the one thing that's been really great through all this is I call myself sort of a Svea born and bred, because my mom, I don't know if you're familiar with Svea, which is the Swedish Women's
Hmm.
Educational Organization.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so
We have
huge
a big
network.
for here in Dallas.
Yeah,
Big.
and actually, I think one of our members here who's very active in the board of directors, Susanne, she I think was at Svea Dallas as well.
I believe so, yes.
Yeah, and so sorry, I apologize. I'm drinking water, and I hope that doesn't come through on audio. But
No,
my
you're
throat's
fine.
been a little bit messy all week. So, yeah, but so throughout all our moves, my mom's always been affiliated or involved in or part of the board for Svea, and so we've always benefited from being able to sort of do these sort of yearly and annual traditions together with
Yeah.
Svea. And that's something actually I've taken on this year. Is I am the vice president now for Svea, Arizona.
Cool.
Yeah, and so we do the kids did Lucia, and this was the first year that my daughter was actively singing in
There you
Lucia,
go.
so that was fun. I don't think that there's a lot of Swedes that actually get to do a Lucia train, as they call them, with their
Uh-huh.
kids. So that was,
Procession.
yeah, so that was really, really special. And then I'm also actually the president of the Swedish school out here in Arizona, or the Swedish School of Phoenix. And so we are working on getting all those little kiddos into the traditions and sort of combining forces with Svea and the Swedish Arizona Chamber of Commerce and those sort of things. So keeping the traditions alive.
Absolutely. That sounds awesome. That sounds so awesome. Yeah. I was singing at Svea Dallas Christmas celebration back last year, and also at the Swedish American Chamber of Commerce Christmas celebration in December. So
Oh, fun.
I did like 4 performances with them, with the Swedish choir over here for different Swedish organizations. So that was a lot of fun. So I'm very, very well aware of them. So, anything else that you would like to add? Sorry, you can't remove anything at this point.
Oh, shoot. Yeah. Is this where I go and incriminate myself?
I don't know.
I ruined the whole episode in just 2
No,
seconds.
I know.
No, I think it's really great. I'm a huge fan of this podcast, and I think it's so fun to hear other people's takes and sort of culture clashes that they experience. I think that's always been my favorite thing about moving is discovering new cultures and sort of being boots on the ground for it, and just you know experiencing them, but through the lens of just, you know, things are different and that's fine. Like just because you do things one way here doesn't mean that that works here. Like that,
Yes.
it's just, you know,
learning also about other cultures and maybe be able to adapt some of them and actually have fun with them and do something on just not just Swedish stuff, but whatever, wherever in the world you are. Because both, I guess, in my and your case, being serial expats, I'm gonna steal that word. I'm stealing it right off the bat.
I'll trademark it.
Yes, you better, because I'll take it. You just don't know what doors are going to option and where in the world those doors are. It's like,
Absolutely.
I don't have a family. If somebody tells me, hey, I give you a job here and here, yeah, let me pack, I can move. I have nothing, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So you just have the whole world as your playground in a way.
Absolutely.
That's fun. So yeah, well, thank you so much for joining me here. We haven't had any technical issues so far, thank God, as we had 2 weeks ago. That was crazy. So I'm so grateful that you are with me today. To all our viewers and or listeners, go on the website and I'll post her social media links and some other stuff. You never know what I find out. So I hope you all have a really great week and take care, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye.